On the Pulse, NDC's presidential candidate John Dramani Mahama challenges President Akufo-Addo to face him in a debate to determine who has a better record of governance.
Election of track records. Comparing his track record to my track record, we can settle it easily. Let's have a debate between two of us.
We get a response from the NPP as President Akufo-Addo continues his tour of the central region. Also, the government says it has resourced the Ghana Police Service to ensure that the 2020 election is peaceful. We hear from Interior Minister Ambrose Derry and Inspector General of Police James Opon-Bueno. Now, the West African Examination Council says it cannot be blamed for the mass leakage of exam questions on social media as it mounts a strong defense. Now, the West African Examination Council says it cannot be blamed for mass leakage of exam questions on social media as it mounts a strong defense and touts its strict security protocols before and after the printing of exam questions. Now, responding to growing calls and concerns from the general public and some stakeholders in the education sector about in the ongoing WASSCE, Head of Public Relations at WAEC, Agnes Tekujo, said her organization can only take responsibility for the leaked contact details of examiners and not the questions. She spoke earlier in an interview with Roland Walker on the AM show.
No, I think that with the issue of the examiners, it was circulated on social media, and we need to find out how it got there, and then that will help us with our investigation. Because if it is from our in-house, so I think we want to get to the fact.
Now, at the West African Examination Council, is it the first time that there has been this mass leakage of papers?
I will not accept what you're saying because we have not said that anything has leaked. So if you say the papers, I don't know what you're talking about. If you talk about the fact that the examiner's list has gone out, yes. But when you talk about leakage of papers, no. It's taken to assessment all under security. I will not be able to tell you the kind of security. And then all under strict security, we do typesetting, we do proofreading. Then papers are printed, so under very, very tight security to have standards there at the press. You know, we have our cameras. People are not even allowed to take in their, wristwatches, anything. You know, very tight security. You are searched before you enter. You don't take mobile. You don't take anything. And those who enter the printing room, when you enter, you don't come out till you have finished for the day. You know, everything is done at the very time. So from there, it's gone to the post, so it's printed, it's parceled, it's packed. And then we go to where we call packing, where it's packed according to the number of candidates. And then there are bags in security bags. We have our security padlock. Then we send it to the depots, what they are to the school, come and pick them from the depot or the strong room and to the center.
Would you agree that the inability of the council, the West African Examination Council, to adopt some of the tightest security encryptive technology has led to this situation?
I would not agree with you because it is not our inability to adopt tighter encrypted technology. That is not.
But we have a
now, if I hand over something to you, and after I've handed over something to you, what do you call it? Snapshots are taken. I don't think it is tighter encrypted security. I think investigations are going on, so I think I'll take it there.
Now, the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, earlier called for a national probe into the leakage of exam papers. The minority in Parliament is also calling for the cancellation of the leaked papers, but the president of NAT, Philippa Larson, says cancelling the questions does not address the annual problem of leaked questions. We will hear from her shortly, but what do you make of this phenomenon, popularly known as APO, and how do we deal with it? My colleague, Manuel Kranting, has been speaking to some students and a teacher at the Action Progressive Institute here in Accra.
tell me, what exactly do you know about Apo? I know when you're coming to senior high school, there were talks about Apo gets leaked and so on and so forth. Tell me about that.
Personally, in this school, we were not encouraged to rely on any source apart from the creator and our teachers. We're encouraged to learn day in and day out and strive to meet our ultimate goals in life. So I personally wasn't dependent on anything while I was preparing for my examination, because I told day in and out to make my parents proud and my school proud as well, and to also make myself proud. So I didn't depend on any person for Apo or any other thing.
But you got to hear about it, right?
It's a rumor that was passing around, like students, high schoolers, teenagers. We talk, we say stuff, but personally in this school, we weren't encouraged to rely on any of that.
Portia, tell me what you saw on social media. The papers got leaked. Tell me about what you saw.
Actually, there were rumors, but I personally didn't see the questions. And even if it came, I didn't see it. I heard people talking about it and stuff, but I didn't see it.
Do you think it's fair, though? You all three of you have been talking about not seeing the papers. Well, you are saying it, I don't know. You've not seen the papers, but the word out there is that the paper got leaked, and a lot of people, I've received the paper and I've written it. In fact, a lot of well-meaning Ghanaians are calling for the papers to be cancelled. Are you aware of that?
Okay, I also heard of that one, but for me, the cancel it, I wouldn't like it because I suffered. I stayed up throughout the night to study. So if they cancel it, I'll be affected.
If they cancel it, you'll be affected. Let me go back to Najat. Najat, people are asking that the papers be cancelled. Well, you say you didn't see it, but some people saw it and they've used it. And they're asking, well-meaning Ghanaians, are asking that the papers be cancelled. How do you receive that?
Well, to look at it from a certain perspective, it would be all right if the papers get cancelled, but on the other view too, it would be really unfair on the part of some of us, because we suffered to stay up at night, burn the midnight candle to write our examinations. People got it on a silver platter and they wrote. That's good for them. For us too, it's good for us because the Lord is about us. So I think it should really be unfair if they cancel the papers, because we really suffered to make it.
You suffered to make it, but others didn't suffer. You don't think that it's only fair that they make it a level playing ground for you to earn what you indeed suffered for? If you indeed really learned to go and write, what's the hassle? Just go and sit down and write again.
Yeah, we're really going to sit back and write again, but we spent like a lot, like we really invested our time into this, and we all have things to do with our time, like resources were put into printing the papers, paying invigilators and examiners, going to do all that process again. Just think about the funds too as well.
If you think about the funds as well. Godfred, I'll come back to Matthew. Matthew is their master and he teaches financial accounting. I'll come back to Matthew in a jiffy. But Godfred, the ladies say that it will be unfair for WAEC to cancel the exams which got leaked. What says you?
As for me, I would like to bring up a point. Like, when the exam is cancelled, what assurance do we have that the next paper won't get leaked? Because we know that every time papers get leaked and people get it to write, and some of us who don't get it become the victim. So as for me, if they will ensure that the next papers won't get leaked, then they can cancel it. But if they think they can't protect it enough, then I think they should maintain it.
No, let me pick the perspective of a teacher. What they have been talking about, they burning the midnight candles, learning, going for prep and so on. For you as a teacher, what will the cancellation mean to you?
Okay, so the cancellation also comes at its own disadvantage to masters, where masters would have to reinvest their time and energy teaching the students again. Probably that's their job, but time cannot be redeemed once lost. Yes, so that's my perspective as well.
But is that a fair perspective though? Because if you have, for instance, a responsibility to cover 13 topics before WASSCE, and as confident as you've been speaking, you cover all these 13 topics, and they go and write and they cancel the paper, what's the big deal? It's just about going to sit down and write it again. No?
Psychologically, the students will be affected. And you need a sound mind to write exams, you should know that. So you would have to psych them up again and ginger them, that is if they cancel the paper, to go and write the paper again. That's
I also spoke to the director of Action Progressive Institute, who says both WAEC and GES are complicit in this practice, and it has very little has been done to address the menace.
It's not a surprise at all. It has been there for years. MPP, NDC, I want us to put even the politics aside. WAEC itself, I have a problem with them. Because over the years, there are instances that I personally have taken it upon myself to challenge. But it seems nothing is coming out. Some years back, one of my administrators told me that I should be careful. Because even when you go forward, you will end up exposing yourself for somebody to take you up. Because every year, you get programs concerning the leaking of examination questions. Innocent people at times are punished. At times they cancel a results of schools. But the source who is actually bringing these questions out, because I don't work there, and the parents are not working there, the students are not working there. At the end of the day, they may arrest some students. At times they cancel results of schools. I'm not against that. But my own problem is that, why don't you trace it to the main source where this problem is coming from? Last 2 years, I got information from somebody that he was having the questions even with the marking scheme. And if I'm prepared, he can come and you do business about that. In fact, I happened to meet the whole boss of GS. He came to my school when the private schools association met him. I told him that I still have the number on my phone. So it has been a business, big-time business, and people are supporting it. So it is time for the education minister to sit down with the WAEC boss and find out, trace it to the main source, that who is behind it. I tell you that I ran this remedial school for 24 years now. And students don't learn because they are very certain that they can get the questions.
Staying a bit longer on the sort of responsibility that WAEC and then the GS have. You've mentioned that the parents don't work at WAEC, and yourself, and by extension, a lot of the teachers don't work there. So it's WAEC and
bringing the questions on social media. Because that is what I heard. A student was bold enough to tell me yesterday that the questions were on social media. Can't WAEC trace it? Can't GS trace it to get the end point where this thing is coming?
We can now hear from the president of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, Philippa Larson, who does not agree with the idea of cancelling leaked papers.
Roland is so worrying, and if we are not careful, this issue is going to become an annual ritual. Over the years, we have had issues where examination papers have leaked, and all we have done is just to cancel the examination papers. Now, there are certain things that we have to look at. Once we do, or once we cancel examination papers, we should know that all these things go with cost, the financial implications, the time, labor, and all that. And so it's just not enough to say that you are canceling the examination papers. There should be a thorough investigation into all that and get to the root cause of the issue. It is something that we have to kill. It's not just a matter of canceling the papers. And people will have to be brought to book. People who are found culpable will have to be punished. Over the years, we have not had any information about people who, from wherever, who have had hand in it and have been punished. And I think this is the time we all have to look at it and do the right thing, get to the root cause of it and punish people so that we kill this thing once and for all.
Now, the cybersecurity unit of the Ghana Police Service is currently investigating the matter following growing demands for a bipartisan probe into the matter. The latest call has come from the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition, and I have that statement with me now. It says the coalition is alarmed by recurring reports of leakage of examination papers and names of examiners in the ongoing West Africa Senior School Certificate Examinations, WASSCE. It is our view that it is time to find a permanent solution to this perennial issue to preserve the credibility of the examinations conducted by the West Africa Examinations Council. Now, 2 weeks ago, WAEC sought to reassure stakeholders with regards to its vigilance and measures taken to ensure the smooth conduct of WASSCE for school candidates. It indicated that it had alerted the Bureau of National Investigations, BNI, Criminal Investigations Department, CID of the police, and the National Security about the threats posed by rogue websites and WhatsApp groups. This was reported in the Daily Graphic of 3rd August 2020. Now, the Ghana Education Service, on the other hand, dismissed the allegations as fake and assured the public that all efforts were being made to track those behind the purported leaked fake paper. Notwithstanding, the statement says, we have been hit again by allegations of copies of answered examination papers such as social studies, core mathematics, and chemistry practical examinations circulating on social media platforms, and the same questions appearing in ongoing examinations. Now, we therefore call on WAEC and GES, this is where the recommendations come, to provide a detailed report on the measures taken to prevent leakage of the 2020 WASSCE examination papers. 2, explain the cause of frequent breaches of WAEC's examination system, leading to a report of leakage every year, despite several assurances from the body. And 3, allow for an independent investigation to unearth and eliminate permanently the cabal behind examination leakages in the country. As you might imagine, this particular story has captured a lot of attention on social media. Let's read a few of your comments there. Nana Kwesi says, cancel the papers, let them take a reset. WAEC is a suspect. What this means is that no institutions across the globe would accept WASSCE certificates for this batch if WAEC does not redeem its image. Tamanja Job says, in the past, anytime papers were leaked, WAEC always cancelled it, and a different set of questions were brought up for students to write. What has changed this time round? Is this institution too being compromised? What at all is going on? Bako Alasan says, as for the integrity of WAEC, they have lost it since. It's high time something serious or a serious stance is taken about their activities before they plunge this country into a mess. Let's read a few more comments. William Deborah says, well, that's very strong words for WAEC. Bae Jeremiah says, the head of WAEC should have resigned by now. The innocent students should be punished. All those at WAEC, including the laborers and watchmen, should be arrested and prosecuted immediately. Very strong recommendation there from Bae Jeremiah. Uxio Arnold Huntington says, good move by WAEC. Your own people leak the questions. Watch and scrutinize them well. Live on the Pulse, let's get our latest updates on the COVID-19 pandemic. And there is nothing like reduced contact tracing. Nobody has stopped it. That's according to the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Aboagye. He was responding to claims of lessened testing and tracing efforts that may have contributed to Ghana's active COVID-19 cases, which are now below 2,000. Dr. Aboagye was speaking at a press briefing by the Ministry of Information today.
There is nothing like reduced contact tracing. Our contact tracing is that if I am positive, you test my contacts, okay? If you have 2,000 positives, you are likely to have more contacts to follow than if you have 100 cases. So it's not like you have a certain number of contacts you must always look for. It depends on the number of contacts you have to follow. And also those who have symptoms that will be tested. So that's what determines how many contacts you follow. We can also look at at-risk group, which we continue to do, and add them up. So that is there's no magic number that you must do, for example, 5,000 contacts or so a day. It depends on what you had the previous day and what response you are going to get. In the area of, so nobody has stopped contact tracing. If you have positive and have 4 contacts, Unlike before, where we wait for those 4 contacts to fall sick or have symptoms before we test them, now we test them immediately, and that's what has given us the large number of tests that we are doing.
Now, speaking at the same event, Head of Disease Surveillance at the Ghana Health Service, Esiedu Bekwe, revealed that less than 50% of the people in the Greater Accra region wear their face masks properly. He shares more from the survey conducted from the 5th to the 8th of August 2020.
For the 3 surveys so far, we actually observed 42,317 persons, and the maximum was on survey 1. That was actually done on the morning of the 5th. And so that one actually surveyed 20,208. Next slide. So these were the key findings. The first survey, the main finding was that 42.3% of the persons that were observed were actually correctly using the mask. And then you have 32.6 who were not correctly using it. So in that case, you can see that there's over 75 people who had the intention of using the mask correctly. So that's the first survey. And then we try to break it down by the locations. And you can see from this breakdown that the Korle Klottey Beach Road is the area that has the lowest in terms of people who are correctly wearing the face mask. You can see that it's less than 2% of the persons were actually wearing it. And rather, the people who were going to Tema Hospital were the people who had the best. They were actually, 90% of them were correctly wearing the face mask. Next slide. Then the survey 2, that's the one that was done between the hours of 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And what you can see is that 33.5% of the people were correctly wearing the mask, while 31.4%. So in that case, you see that 65% of Ghanaians at that time that were surveyed were having the intention to use the face mask. If you decide to break it down by category, it still boils down to the same fact that the Korle Klottey Beach Road still had the lowest. So it tells you that the people at that particular location had a very low tendency to correctly wear the face mask. And the people in the Tema Hospital were the best. I think that it has to do with our enforcement. As people are going to hospital, they are more motivated to wear the mask compared to people who are maybe having fun. The last one was the one that was done at the markets. So this one, 44.3% of the people who were in the market, and I said that there are 5 categories that we actually observed. 44.3 were correctly wearing the mask, and 37.7 were correctly wearing the mask. It tells you that 82% of people in the market had the intention to correctly or have a mask. So we decided to look at the 4 markets, which of them had the best in terms of correctly wearing a mask. And this slide is showing that Malamata, actually 52.1% of people who were observed in Malamata were correctly wearing a mask, as opposed to Mokala that had 41.3. Next slide. So based on the categories that were observed, which people were correctly wearing a mask. And then surprisingly, the headquarters, the 59.1% of them were correctly wearing a mask. And then the buyers, the people who were going to buy, I think they have a low perception of risk. They 32.3 of them were just correctly wearing a mask. It tells you that the headquarters at that time of the survey had a better perception of risk. Next slide. So this last slide is giving an average of the survey findings. The first survey is saying that 42.3 of people that were observed correctly wore the mask. 72.5 correctly wore the mask. The last one that was done in the market said 44.3. So that is a summary of the surveys that were done on the 5th and the 8th of August. So we conclude by saying that 82% of Ghanaians that were surveyed in Accra between the 5th and 8th of August had the intention to actually use a mask. There's an intention because they actually had a mask. But we'll conclude by saying that less than 50% of them actually had a mask and used it appropriately.
You're live on the Pulse with me, Daniel Daze. Still up ahead, NDC's presidential candidate and former president John Dramani Mahama challenges President Akufo-Addo to face him in a debate to determine who has a better record of governance.
An election of track records. Comparing his track record to my track record, we can settle it easily. Let's have a debate between two of us.
NPP organizer Samuel Coup joins us very shortly with a response from the party as President Akufo-Addo himself continues his tour of the central region. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Let's hit the campaign trail and the big infrastructure debate which is just starting. Former President John Dramani Mahama, who is flag bearer of the opposition NDC, has thrown a challenge to President Akufo-Addo to a debate on the record of their government, especially infrastructure. It comes after Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's data-driven presentation to argue that the Akufo-Addo government has undertaken infrastructure projects in excess of 17,000. According to him, this is better than what was provided by the opposition NDC in its 8-year tenure. But addressing residents of the Ketu South constituency yesterday as part of his 4-day tour of the Volta region, the former president said a debate will bring a conclusion to the matter.
Easy to settle the issue of infrastructure. After all, the president said this election is going to be an election of track records. Comparing his track record to my track record, we can settle it easily. Let's have a debate between two of us, the two presidents. Let Nana Akufo-Addo come and sit down. Let me sit down, and let's debate our records.
Let's get a quick response to this. Samuel Oku is national organizer of the New Patriotic Party. He's joined us via Zoom. Mr. Oku, thanks for your response to former President Mahama's challenge to your presidential candidate.
Well, let me say a very good afternoon to your cherished viewers. We want to make one thing clear. The NPP will fight these elections on our own terms. The NPP is not going to fight these elections on the terms of Mr. John Dramani Mahama and that of the NDC. And I like your introduction to this whole conversation. You said this is following Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's data-driven presentation. So meaning that you do acknowledge that Dr. Bawumia did make some solid presentation, data-driven. These are not projects that you can just imagine. These are projects that you can feel, you can see, they are tangible. You don't need a soothsayer to tell you something is happening around the Opoku-Agyemang interchange area. You don't need someone to tell you that there's something happening around the motorway. The interchange. You also don't need someone to tell you when you use the Abosokai area of the Bechebelamte interchange. You don't need someone to tell you about what is happening of the Tema-Pakadan railway line. You see it, you walk through it, you know that there's something happening. You also do not need someone to just lie to you or try to play propaganda. When we say that if you go to Tamale today, they're having their first interchange in Northern Ghana under the NPP's administration, the Sino-Hydro project, where we've cut salt, work is ongoing, and at a greater percentage. Again, if you also want to go to industrialization, I don't need someone to lie to me that if I go to Goma today and I'm looking for Casa de Ropa under the 1B1F initiative, it doesn't exist. I don't need someone to convince me that if I go to Bolga today and I'm using the Bolga Bokuro, work is ongoing and almost completed. If I use the Eastern Corridor Road, I have something to tell myself that this government is working.
Right.
To use the Bimbala Salaga Road. So I'm not too sure what Mr. Mahama wants us to do on this one. But as I said, we have our own campaign strategies and we have our own campaign plans. The NPP will go according to our own strategy. If the need arises and you feel that it's necessary, then we can give it a thought.
Now, Mr. Oku, you are so confident about your government's performance in its administration. Would it not then be a walk in the park for you to debate the former president and show Ghanaians in full view that you have done a better job?
Well, I'm sure the Ghanaian people also can feel and they can see that indeed the NPP is also working, and we've done a fantastic job. And if you take under the One Village, One Dam initiative, in excess of over 400 dams, but with over 370 or so plus completed and working. So I don't need a debate to tell you that these are tangible things, these are things that are happening across the country. If Mr. Mahama wants the debate, well, from where I sit today, I don't think the NPP has given it a thought yet.
Now, the record that you have put forward has been questioned heavily. I'm looking at various publications online which raised several questions about the infrastructure development.
By who, sir?
I will draw your attention first of all to what Felix Kwatio-Fosu said when he was speaking on the Super Morning Show on Joy FM this morning, counting more than 2,300 projects in the education sector alone in the 4 years of President Mahama as president. He places this by what the vice president presented and says that their record is much better than yours, which is what I'm sure is informing their confidence in calling for this debate, Mr. Uku.
I'm not too sure if Felix Kwatio-Fosu is one of Mr. Mahama's advisors. But if indeed he's one of Mr. Mahama's advisors, then I think Mr. Mahama will have to really take a critical look at some of the people around him. If you take the educational sector, as I speak to you today, the new Patriotic Party administration, we have completed around 1,253 of these projects. If you take the ongoing projects, we're talking about 1,446. So bringing a total to 2,699. If Kwatio-Fosu is telling me that all these initiatives that the NPP has spoken about, all these projects are projects that doesn't exist, I don't know what then he's trying to say. Because under the NBC, we didn't have a double track. We implemented free SHS. Free SHS has come with its own attendant projects and infrastructure. Under the educational sector, if you take Mahama's administration, they commissioned around 48 e-blocks, but in actual fact, only about 27 or 29 were completed. But they did commission projects that were not even completed. They have taken the pain to complete and also started new ones and about completing.
I'm curious, when you say incomplete, what do you mean? I was at the commissioning of one of these projects in the Western region. At that time, I was doing my work there as a journalist, and we saw that the school was ready to be used. Which schools were commissioned, which were not completed?
When I say some of them were incomplete or had not been completed, if you're talking about 48 projects, and maybe I don't know the one that you visited.
Bamianko in the Western region.
That one was completed, but several of them had not been completed. But then, as part of the propaganda, they did commission it and said it was completed. This same Felix Kwatio-Fosu took a picture from a Chinese website, splashed it on his social media page, and told us that that was the Afam Plains bridge that was being built, and that he couldn't wait for it to be commissioned. Years down the line, not a single stone was put there. So I am hesitant to enter into the arena with Felix Kwatio-Fosu when it comes to him properly giving us examples of projects that they did. And so I wouldn't even get into that arena at all.
I just want to raise this quick final point about value for money, because that was a big part of Mr. Bawumia's presentation yesterday, on Tuesday, pardon me. Now, Dr. Bawumia, mentioned that 4 interchange projects amounts to 289 million. 1 interchange project amounts to 264 million. Some would say, Mr. Uku, that no 2 interchanges are the same. Indeed, data has come to show that the second interchange is one of the largest in the country, if not the largest in the country as we speak. And the scope of work there could be different from these 4 interchanges, which would account for the larger costs.
Well, I think Dr. Bawumia was clear in his presentation when it came to figures. You are now talking about the engineering aspect and the component. That's another discussion for us to have. But then I take the Opoku-Agyemang interchange, which is a 4th tier, and it's going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in West Africa. Then I am likely to say that obviously, for us, we got it at a reduced cost, and for us, we believe that was value for money.
Now, the size above ground, and I understand that you may not want to enter the details, the technical details. But the size above ground, Mr. Oku, may differ from what is below. I mean, we both know that if you are building a house, sometimes the most expensive part is the foundation. And the same could be said about a road, no?
Well, but if the same could be said about the road, what the MPP is saying, that with the little that we got from our Ghanaian people through taxes, we are counting to the people. From loans we've taken, looking at the figures, this is what we've been able to do for the Ghanaian people. The NDC's argument is that based on what they got, they thought they could have gotten it at a higher price. So that is a different matter. But if we are doing the comparative analysis, we believe that we've been able to build these 4 interchanges at this amount. The NDC is saying, okay, they had some structural problems, so they were able to build just 1 at this amount. That doesn't mean that the MPP's position of, for us, building 4 interchanges at this particular amount was inaccurate.
Yeah, interesting. I have some documents that was shared yesterday, and I'll crave your indulgence on this matter because I'm sure you would appreciate the fact, Mr. Oku, that the value for money question is a big part of the conversation that was had. And former Roads Minister Nhyiaeso Afuseni shared this, that the second phase of the Ebichebi-Lamte interchange had a budget of 63 million, but the MPP is doing it for 100 million. And he shared a statement caption, a document caption, motion for the adoption and approval of a loan or for a commercial contract. Basically, the motion for the approval of the contract in Parliament. That's what Nhyiaeso Afuseni shared with us on PM Express last night.
So, this even defeats the NDC's position that they are trying to espouse. Even though I reject Nhyiaeso Afuseni's assertion, the NDC, on one hand, is telling us that no 2 interchanges are the same. When we made the point that we got the Opoku-Agyemang, the Tema, the Obechebi-Lamte, and that of the Tamale interchanges at a reduced value for money amount. Now, the NDC say, oh, no 2 interchanges are the same. At the same time, they are telling us that the Obechebi-Lamte, we have increased the cost of building the Obechebi interchange. So are they now saying that now the interchanges are the same? Is that what they are saying? So I struggle to even understand their position on these matters. What Dr. Bawumia sought to portray, or what he sought to do, was to put the figures, the facts, and the data on the table. For us to do some serious analysis of what is on the table, how prudent government has used our taxes, and how well this government has managed the public purse. And this is a debate, we're not going to run away from it. We have set the tone for a serious infrastructural debate, for us to have a conversation, for us to have issue-based campaign, and how, in the mind of the NPP, that is how this campaign should go in 2020. But because the NDC's earlier position was that we haven't undertaken any major infrastructural project. And they've been consistent in this propaganda. Then we put out facts that vindicates our position, that we've embarked on several infrastructural projects, from health to education to energy to security to every sector of our national life.
But just to be clear, even though you have opened the way for an infrastructure debate, your position as expressed here is that you will not respond to former President Mahama's call for a debate between Mr. Akufo-Addo and himself on this infrastructure matter.
Let me be clear on it, Daniel. What I'm saying is that the MPP will fight these elections on our own terms. As I speak to you now, the party hasn't given it a thought for us to have any debate with Mr. Mahama. We are going according to our campaign strategy. We are going according to our own terms on how we want to prosecute this campaign. And I don't think that we've given it a serious thought about a debate with Mr. Mahama. But yes, he also has an opportunity to put forward his data, because he did indicate that Bawumia did put forward data-driven presentation. We expect Mr. Mahama or his running mate to put forward another data-driven presentation to counter what Dr. Bawumia did. Let's set that ground rules first, and then we can move to the next stage.
So a quick comment that my production just drew my attention to on our Facebook wall, Mr. Oku. The question really is that as part of the 17,000 projects that Dr. Bawumia put out on Tuesday, we had projects like urinals, like public toilets and what have you. In your view, when the Ghanaian hears the word infrastructure and infrastructure development, would you say that they would be thinking of projects like urinals and public toilets and what have you?
If you go to a community, that community, what they lack most in that community is a toilet facility. Are you going to build a library or you are going to build a toilet facility? I mean, let's be clear on these matters. We've done needs assessment of the various communities in Ghana. There are places you will go, their biggest need is a market. You cannot tell that community that because what you need is a market, I think that what you will need will be a dam. It just doesn't work. And so the projects we've embarked upon from community to community, Ghana is not only Accra. That is a mistake that we keep making. You go somewhere, what the person needs will tell you that, well, we need a dugout. You go somewhere, they will tell you we need a school block. You go somewhere, you need to fix their roads. And all these are infrastructural projects that as a government, those ones you consider little, those ones that are considered big, merged and put together, it forms the bigger framework of what we want to do nationwide.
What would you say to that NDC member of parliament who would say that I constructed 3 public toilets in my constituency. By that measure, I should be president. If I remember the word mundane being used. These projects are mundane.
Which NDC member of parliament?
Inusaf Husseini, speaking on PM Express last night with Evans.
He's a very good friend, right? He's not contesting again. So he can still pick the nomination forms when the party opens nominations again. In 2024, maybe he can help secure a win for the NDC.
So these projects are not mundane at all?
Not at all. That's what I'm saying, that if you get to a community and Daniel, what they need, according to the chiefs, the people, the residents in the community, if they tell you what they need is a toilet facility and a market, and you are saying no, instead I want to build a fountain for them, there is a disconnect. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's about the needs of the people. It's not about what we think. It's about what they need. And if you check the constitutional provisions of our country, the basic necessities of life to support the human being and the growth of the person as a Ghanaian.
Samuel Coup, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
He's national organizer for the New Patriotic Party. Now, earlier today, former Deputy Communications Minister Felix Kwakye-Ofosu said the NPP does not have names to the infrastructural projects they claim to have built. According to him, they are just providing figures, which is different with the MDC. He spoke on the Super Morning Show.
Aggregated projects. He is even talking about regional breakdowns. So Ashanti, 32 projects. Central, 14. We have actually published fully the exact name of the school where the project is taking place. So I'll give you a random example. So
no, we are not interested. You see, this is where you hold on, honorable marking. Yes, Felix, go ahead.
We've published a full list of schools. You yourself ascertain it. You verify the fact, and I'm telling you that we don't just do regional aggregates as he is requesting. We have actually gone a bit further to name the specific school. So I'll give you a random example. So you have, what do you call it? There's a place at Amfuega Bume, or it's called Amfuega Bume, EP Primary School. It's in Kpando. So construction of 6 new classroom block, office, store, and ancillary facilities completed. So we give an update. We give you the specific place where the school is located. And Aveno is insisting that we should still provide an update. When we have done it already, he probably was unaware that we've done it. Again, every single project that is done by an agency. So even this one that I'm talking to you about, it is done by the Ministry of Education. Some of them are financed through Gov't. Others too are financed through donor support. So they have a full list of everything they've done. Indeed, it's not the first time that we've published a full list.
To do a value for money.
Again, there's no basis for that. It's completely,
really?
Yes, it is completely false for Dr. Bamia to claim that because the Kwame Nkrumah interchange cost a certain amount, all other interchanges, when you put them together, must cost that same amount.
Get an update on the former president's tour, and correspondent Ivy Setoji joins us with more. Ivy, how are you doing? Bring us up to speed on where the former president's tour took him today, and particularly the response he got from the people.
the north-side district of the Volta region, where a huge crowd at the bar met the former president to speak with him. Actually, the road is blocked right there at the start bar where the president is talking to the people. Now, the people are happy that the former president is announced to campaign, and according to some of the people, they pray that he wins and so that he can complete some of the projects that are left. Now, from here, we are moving to Kwanto and then to the Wofi region. He has been telling the people about projects, job creation, and the fact that Volta region is part of the country, and so as a good that there is a need for that leader to unite the people instead of dividing them. That the NDC is a peaceful party. So this is basically some of the messages they've been telling.
Right, I mean, thank you very much for bringing us that report on the former president's tour in the Volta region. Let's take you now to the central region, and we must apologize for the poor audio connection there with Ivy Setsuji if you found it difficult to hear. Let's go to the central region. President Akufo-Addo, who is leading the NPP into the election, has been there today for a working tour. He cut sort for the construction of the Elimina Fish Landing site. The fish landing site is expected to boost the fishing industry and create more jobs for the people.
The construction of an additional administrative building, a shed for the fish market, a shed for fishing net mending, 2 cold stores and ice factories, a new slipway for bigger vessels with a boat refurbishment area, a toilet block, and a daycare center. The project will also provide beach and coastal protection works, as well as restoration of the area in front of the Elimina Castle to enhance tourism. I want to reaffirm, in response to Nhyiaeso, the statement just made by the Minister for Tourism, Creative Arts and Culture, that a new policy is being worked out to enhance revenue sharing with traditional authorities of the location of our castles and forts along our coast. So Nana Kondia, you will hear from us soon, and you will also receive assistance to complete John Ajekun Kufuor's construction and of a new palace for you. A chief of your standing should not be exposed to the threats of a landlord. You should be your own landlord. And government recognizes a significant contribution in the industry to our non-traditional export market. In spite of the good strides we have been making over the years in the industry in relation to infrastructure development for fishing communities, we believe that we can do more in terms of export of processed fish and fish-related products to rake extra revenue for our country. Government continues to make deliberate efforts to make value addition a priority through policy interventions for companies. I urge the Ministries of Transport, Fisheries and Works and Housing, the contractors and consultants, to work closely together to execute this project diligently and ensure it is completed on time and on budget. Once completed, I appeal to you to help ensure that a prudent maintenance culture is adopted by management in the use of the fishing port. All of us must appreciate that the deterioration of infrastructure and other assets of state are an enormous drain on our national resources, and this port should not suffer the fates of other facilities with a poor maintenance culture. The Nanum and residents of Elimina, I thank you for your continued support for the work of my government in my first term, and God willing, with 4 more for Nana and the NPP, we shall all gather here to commission this project soon.
Richard Kojo Nyako is our correspondent for the Central Region. Hi, Richard. Tell us, apart from the fish landing sites that the president cut the sod for, what has the president been doing so far?
Well, so this started very early in the morning, and then it was at Elimina. So the sod has already been cut. We are currently at Kifu-Praso, where the president has inspected the Kifu-Praso bridge, which is currently under construction. And he indicated that it was going to cost the state $40 million. After that, we will go to the Kifu-Praso District Hospital. That is also near completion. The president is expected to also visit the site to inspect what is going on there. He has also paid a courtesy call on the chief of Timokwa, where they had some discussions there. So from there, we'll come back to Cape Coast. And so these are some of the things that have gone on today. But back to Elimina, you heard the president saying that there is a new policy where there will be revenue sharing. And so those who have tourism sites along the coastal belt of the country would share these revenue with government. And so government indicated, and this was in response to the Omahin of Edna traditional area, Nanakojukundia, on why there would be tourist attraction like the castle, like the fort, and they get absolutely nothing from the state. And so that was what happened today, or what has been happening today.
Tell us about the response, and I do see that in the pictures, that in the visuals that I'm seeing, social distancing is being observed among the chiefs, but behind the tent, there are still a few people standing in clusters. Would you confirm this with what you have observed yourself today, Richard?
Yes, that's true. I mean, there is a deliberate effort to ensure that the social distance works wherever we have gone. But those who are standing behind, I wouldn't say that they are officially not invited, but they also came to witness the event. And so that is what you see there. But wherever we have gone, there is a deliberate effort for the observance of social distance.
Let's move on to other stories. We'll get back to him later. Now, the running mate for Mr. John Dramani Mahama, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyemang, is in the Bono region, where she will be campaigning for the next 2 days. She's expected to pay courtesy calls on traditional and religious leaders, other stakeholders and identified groups, including artisans, traders, and drivers. Earlier, she was in the northern region and had this to say to the people.
It might be you someday. So the time to stop it is right now. There's no excuse for this. This is not acceptable. Our older people exist to share the experience with us. They were here before we came. In fact, they brought us here. We have no right to determine when they leave. So on this, I want to thank everyone who helped. But as I said, we need to move on to eradicate this. Thank you all very much. And we will see, you know very well that my focus includes the aged. My focus is for the children, the women, the youth. That is why I'm charging you. I'm giving you a responsibility. Let it not be said again that this has happened. You are in the communities. My focus also includes the aged. Already when you grow old, you are vulnerable. That is bad enough. Your health is not in the best shape. That is bad enough. You shouldn't live in fear. You shouldn't live in fear among your own people. This is not acceptable. Only we can stop this. No NGO will come from anywhere and stop it. And we are capable of stopping it, and we must stop it. Peace. We should work towards inclusion The country is for all of us. Everybody is part of it. We should all learn to live in peace with each other. Thank you very much.
So that was Prof. Sanana Jane Opoku-Agyemang. Specifically, she was speaking on the lynching of Nhyiaeso, Mami Nhyiaeso, that 90-year-old woman who was beaten to death on suspicion of being a witch. And so she was speaking to some persons in the northern region and encouraging that such a situation does not happen again. Let's move on. And government says it has provided the needed resources for the Ghana Police Service to ensure that the 2020 elections is peaceful. Interior Minister Ambrose Derry this morning cut the sod for the construction of a formed police unit headquarters and International Relations Directorate Office complex for the Ghana Police Service. He told pressmen the government has performed its end of the bargain and expects the election to be violence-free. We'll hear from the Interior Minister very shortly, but Inspector General of Police James Opon-Buenu has meanwhile commended government for its support, assuring the police will make use of the facilities provided to improve its work.
We of the police administration are greatly relieved that the planning stage of this modern office complex has been successful, and we are now witnessing the commencement of the implementation stage today. This is indeed a dream come true, as our challenge in the area of pre-deployment training at the expense of other institutions will be addressed effectively when the project is finally completed. I wish to express my heartfelt gratitude to the government on behalf of the police administration and the officers and men of the Ghana Police Service. We are grateful for the continued support that we are getting. To the President of our Republic, Nana Akufo-Addo, his vice, and who also happens to be the chairman of the Police Council, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, our Honorable Minister, we indeed owe you a debt of gratitude for your unflinching support. My gratitude would not be complete without acknowledging the immense support and contribution which the Police Management Board, the contractor, and all stakeholders have contributed towards the realization of this ceremony today. Once again, I welcome all of you to this ceremony.
We can now hear Interior Minister Ambrose Derry, who spoke to journalists on the sidelines of this ceremony and assured them that government has done its bit in resourcing the police enough to ensure the election is peaceful.
We need to be very clear about the various roles that we play. For the government, ours is to provide the facilities, give the resources, and the operational matters are for the police. The police, the IGP is the leader of all operational matters, and the Constitution has done it consciously so that the government does not interfere in operational matters. It's for the IGP to handle. And you realize over the years, when it comes to elections, even when you go to the levels of the assemblies, the chief executives are removed from the system and is normally led by the police commander at all levels. So yes, what we have done, the government has done, is to provide the facilities. And you heard the IGP himself. What we have done for the police is unprecedented. When we came into power, most of the police vehicles were less than 400 and they were not functional. Now you know, they themselves have got about 700 vehicles. We have established 2 wings, air wing and canine wing for the dogs. We've trained young men in South Africa. They are passed out as pilots and we're waiting to deploy that. And you've just seen another level of support, providing them the support to build the office complex to be able to make the international directorate and the APU efficient. So what we are doing is providing the funding. And I think we did, and we are going to continue providing the funding. The President's commitment is for a free and peaceful election. That is left for the security agencies to do, and the election is going to be run by the EC. Those are the things. So our role has been met, and we will continue to provide the resources. The technical matter is operational matters are left with the IGP, as the Constitution provides.
Away from elections, the people of Nhyiaeso in the Asante Akim North District are heaving a sigh of relief as MTN Ghana Foundation prepares to change their plight with the handing over of a 6-unit classroom block and teachers' bungalow today. The project follows a JoyNews Agenda report which highlighted the poor and life-threatening conditions at one of the schools in the town. My colleague, Ohiming, whose report caught the attention of MTN Ghana Foundation, has more.
Structures in the Nhyiaeso DA Basic School became a death trap. Cracked walls, loose door frames, fallen ceiling and classrooms filled with foul-smelling animal droppings were the lot of students. Despite the danger posed by the dilapidated school structures, education authorities were reluctant to close it down. Children from Nhyiaeso until now were compelled to trek 32 kilometers to and from the nearest town, Ananikrum, to attend JHS. Some of the girls were sexually assaulted by nomadic herdsmen en route to school.
Let's begin with JoyNews Agenda this week, and we are focusing on dilapidated school structure across the country. Now, basic schools in the Asante Akim North District of the Ashanti region conduct classes in dilapidated and life-threatening structures.
Following a JoyNews Agenda report highlighting the plight of the students, MTN Ghana Foundation intervened.
We have very good news for the people of Nhyiaeso near Agogo. MTN Ghana, having heard the news about the deplorable state in which the basic school is, the board has given approval for us to invest into a 6-classroom block.
Soon after the announcement, contractors, Wilfram Enterprise, moved to site and work began in earnest.
Component comprises 6-classroom block, staff common room. We have library attached to it. We have headmaster's room, and then teacher's bungalow, and we have classroom chairs. We've done everything. We've done the painting, so now it's ready for commissioning.
Thanks to MTN Ghana Foundation, teachers and students of Nhyiaeso DA Basic School can now boast of a new full-cycle basic education infrastructure. Francis Otibuatin is the chief executive for Asante Akim North.
I always give credit to my brother Ohiming for such a very huge project. The first time I saw the report on TV, I was even marveled. Say, what is happening? Are we not washing our dirty lining in public? So I wanted to even call the journalist to admonish him about what he have done, but not knowing it was a blessing in disguise. It's one of the most beautiful projects in the district. It comes with all the facilities. It is completion and finishing. 6 classroom blocks cost around 280 to 300,000 for the assembly. But when you talk about finishing and terrazzo and because this one is not an ordinary 6 classroom block, as we always say. This is ultra modern 6 classroom block. It has released assembly about 500,000 Ghana cedis.
For MTN, the Nhyiaeso project does not only give meaning to its everywhere you go slogan, but also a true definition of the telecom giant's resolve to improve education for the rural poor. Sam Cranton is corporate services executive at MTN Ghana.
It is rather fulfilling and gratifying knowing when we first visited the site what we saw and with the background stories we had, and to see where we are today, where we actually see the completion of what we started. It is something that is quite fulfilling, and MTN Ghana Foundation is very excited about it, that once again we've been able to complete and finish something that is unique and would be very beneficial to that community and the district at large. The expectation is that it would increase school attendance in the area. It would drastically reduce children dropping out of school because it would create a conducive learning environment for them, and it would boost education in that area because the children are the future of this country, and educating them is the responsibility of all of us.
From Nhyiaeso in Asante Agogo for Joy News, Nhyiaeso reporting.
Now, Nhyiaeso is still at Nhyiaeso, and he's joining us live from there. Nhyiaeso, what was the reaction when the keys to the classroom block was handed over to the headmaster?
I must say it's been a moment of joy for the chiefs and people of Nhyiaeso, a farming community, the Asante and North District of the Ashanti region. For them, they least expect MTN, and for that matter, multimedia group, for instance, to hit community to highlight the plight of residents, especially poor students who had to trek for several kilometers to attend JHS in nearby Ananikrum. And on their way, the females amongst them had to be at the receiving end of sexual abuses masterminded by nomadic herdsmen in that enclave. So they have singled out Multimedia Group for praise, and also MTN Foundation for coming to their aid with such a gesture that is not even found in the district capital, Agogo. And the big cities and big communities like Kumasi and other places. So residents of Nhyiaeso, especially the students and the teachers, have been singing praises, and they are elated to receive such a gesture at this point in time of their lives.
Now, of course, the praises should be going to you, Nhyiaeso, because this was your brainchild, really. If you can walk us through the process, first of all, how did you find this school to tell the story in the first place?
Yes, Daniel, I do recall that in 2017, I initiated moves to investigate farmer herdsmen clashes that at that time was a big issue in the Agogo area. It's been an issue for over 40 years, and both successive governments have failed to address that particular issue. And at the time that I went to investigate these clashes, I put them together into a documentary that I titled Violent Shepherds. And when I traveled to Nhyiaeso as part of my investigations to unravel the circumstances that has led to these clashes, I was, informed of how students who had to trek for several kilometers, about 32 kilometers, to Ananikrum, the females among them, being abused on their way by these herdsmen. At the time I went there, in a year, two females or two students had been assaulted in that regard. So I put together this documentary, and then when the issue of JoyNews Agenda was introduced by the JoyNews team, then I decided to also concentrate, pick the Nhyiaeso story as a single story, because the students at that time were being housed in deplorable, dilapidated infrastructure, which at that time was life-threatening. Even there was a time that when students would be in class and they'll be visited by reptiles such as snakes and all that. So this informed my decision to highlight the plight of the people of Nhyiaeso. Right. But that did not end there. After airing the story on JoyNews TV, I took a step further to send a proposal to MTN Ghana Foundation, and I was invited to their board meeting to present my proposal to the board. At that time, there were a lot of educational institutions that had gathered to seek MTN support for education support, but they were given 10 minutes each. They included University of Ghana, the Koforidua Technical University, to mention just a few. they were given, their representatives were given 10 minutes to make a presentation, make a case for why they should be sponsored. And I, as a journalist, was given just 3 minutes. But after my presentation, I was told that I impressed the MTN Board Foundation. The story of the Nhyiaeso basic school touched the board members. So MTN agreed, and then I approved the construction of 6 units classroom block and furnished it with education materials as well as furniture for the people of Nhyiaeso. And I was also, surprised to hear that MTN added a teacher's bungalow to the project. So that has been the genesis of the Nhyiaeso project.
Ohiming, more power to your elbows and all the best. This is indeed an amazing story. Now, before you go, though, the Multimedia Group Limited's General Manager for Kumasi, Jimmy Agla, spoke to us. Let's hear him.
From the entire management and staff of the Multimedia Group, we're here to say thank you to MTN Ghana for hearing our voice and heeding the cries of the students of this community by putting up this beautiful infrastructure. We need to know how this whole journey began. And so I'd like to share a brief history of why or how we got here today. In 2017, our own investigative journalist, Mr. Ohiming Tembiya, of the Multimedia Group, set out to investigate farmer and herdsmen clashes at Agogo in the Asante Akim North District. The project, called Violent Shepherds, was featured on our radio and television brands across the country. Violent Shepherds revealed how the herdsmen, the Fulani herdsmen, led the killing of 56 natives of Agogo and the destruction of several acres of farmlands between the years 2002 and 2010. Upon receiving government's attention, the herdsmen were flushed out from this enclave. This has led to an increase in the export potential of local farmers who now have the capability and the opportunity to export their produce outside of the country. Violent Shepherds also revealed how junior high school students of Nhyiaeso who trek for about 36 kilometers, I don't believe this, 36 kilometers daily to nearby Ananikrum to school were sexually harassed and abused by the Fulani herdsmen. Their plight was highlighted on JoyNews Agenda program, which also focused on the dilapidated educational infrastructure in the community. And so, to cut a long story short, MTN intervened and put up this beautiful infrastructure. So the board and directors of Multimedia have sent me here to say thank you to MTN Ghana Foundation and to Nananum and to everybody who contributed to the success of this beautiful program.
And that was Jimmy Agla. He's Multimedia Group Limited's General Manager for Kumasi. Ohiming Tembiya, thank you once again. It was great, the work that you've been doing, and, we can't wait to hear the next one.
Thank you, Daniel.
Right, you're still live on The Pulse with me, Daniel Dazi. We'll move to other stories very quickly. And the Korle Klottey Municipal Health Directorate has set up 8 community pregnancy schools within the assembly as part of efforts to reduce maternal mortality in the municipality. Principal Nursing Officer at the Directorate, Dora Kobner, says the schools, which will complement other initiatives, will give health workers the opportunity to sharpen their skills even as they attend to pregnant women at various health facilities. There's more in this report by Nicholas Ekoyamwa.
Maternal and infant mortality rate has declined in the Korle Klottey municipality over the past 17 years. Incidents across Ghana declined by 38% in the last 20 years, from 342 deaths per 100,000 live births to 211 deaths per 100,000 live births. But the country is still lagging behind in the UN Sustainable Development Goal 3, which requires countries to reduce maternal mortality to less than 17 deaths per 100,000 live births. At the Korle Klottey municipality here in the Greater Accra region, the Health Directorate has set up 8 community pregnancy schools within the assembly. Principal Nursing Officer at the Directorate, Dora Kobina, says this is to further keep in check the maternal mortality rate in the area. She was speaking at the launch of the Woman 360 at the Nhyiaeso Clinic in Accra.
For Korle Klottey, for us to control maternal mortality, we have set up certain interventions like the pregnancy schools. We have set up 8 pregnancy schools within the municipality. We have 5 in the communities, and these are being manned by community health nurses. And we also have 3 in the various health facilities. That's Rich Hospital. We have one at Adaraka Polyclinic, and there's also one at Osu Government Maternity Home. So this community pregnancy school is not to replace the routine focused ANC, but it's a form of giving the health workers or the health providers the opportunity to sort of improve upon their skills. They'll be able to come out with innovations and interventions to help the pregnant women so that they'll have a safe delivery.
Country Director of Pharmacists Group Ghana, Dr. Maxwell Enchi, said the Woman 360 has come at the right time to help unemployed nurses to get full-time jobs.
You have scenarios where midwives and doctors finish school, and for a while they might be at home because they are waiting for financial clearance by the Ministry of Health or Ministry of Finance to get on board the public sector. This provides an opportunity to engage them and put them to useful contribution to the social goals of Ghana using the private sector.
The launch of the Woman 360 spoke will make antenatal and postnatal services to women who are most occupied in the community. Nicholas Eko-Yamua's report for Joy News.
Now, coronavirus continues to be a major issue around the world, and Germany has been reacting to the coup d'etat in Mali. Now, crossover to Germany today, we focus on these two. Europe is particularly concerned about holidaymakers returning home and those who are already home celebrating too much. Also, there are fresh restrictions as officials warn against non-essential travel to Spain and the United Kingdom. My colleague Bernice Abubedulanta has been speaking with correspondent Thomas Sparrow in Germany.
It's nice to be back on the program and indeed to touch on this very important issue, the situation in Mali. Mali plays a very important role in German foreign relations because there's a military presence there. And we received a statement by the German Foreign Ministry, and in that statement the German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said he was very concerned about events in Mali, and he also stressed that Germany strongly condemns the attempt to bring what they described as an unconstitutional takeover of power by the military. So Germany is strongly condemning those attempts to bring about that change. It support the efforts to restore the constitutional order, and that current events in Mali do not contribute to greater stability and social reconciliation in the country. So this was a statement that we received from the German Foreign Ministry on the current situation in Mali.
Thomas, does the statement mention what the country has decided with regards to your troops in Mali?
One very important decision, and probably one of the most imminent decisions that were made, was to increase security of German troops that are in Mali. German troops have been in Mali for a long time, and they are part of 2 international missions in Mali. One mission by the United Nations, another mission by the European Union, in particular missions to try and stabilize the situation in that country, but also to play a role in security as a whole in the Sahel region. And the role the German military personnel play is basically training. That's one of the key elements of Germany's missions, not only in Mali, but also in other parts of the world. And as such, one of the key decisions that was taken as of now, as I mentioned already, was to increase the security of troops that are already there.
Let's talk about coronavirus now, Thomas. Here in Ghana, there's been a significant reduction in our active cases, but we're also not testing as much. What is the latest in Germany regarding numbers and testing?
So not only in Germany, but also in other European countries, what we're seeing is an increase in the number of coronavirus cases, and a very significant increase in the number of coronavirus cases as well. So Germany, for example, has been registering over 1,000 new cases a day. You may think that that's not much, and it is, in fact, lower than other regions in the world or than other countries in the world, for example, the United States. But at the same time, for Germany, this 1,000 plus new cases every day is very significant. In fact, it's the highest number since May. And this echoes what is also happening in other parts of the continent. France, for example, Spain, the Netherlands, also registering higher numbers of coronavirus cases. And that's why some people are already discussing here the fact that this could be a second wave of coronavirus in Europe. What Germany has done in particular is try and focus on the three areas of concern. One, you mentioned it already in your introduction, the fact that holiday makers are returning to the country from other destinations and bringing the virus with them. In fact, around 39% of infections last week here in Germany were brought from abroad. That's one area of concern. The second area of concern is local infections, in particular after people might be partying or celebrating too much. The good weather here in Germany does not help necessarily to keep those social distances. And the third element is that more and more younger people seem to be getting infected. In fact, the average age of infections in Germany last week was 32, and just to give you a comparison, over Easter a few months ago that was 52. So you can clearly see that more and more younger people are getting infected with the coronavirus.
Well, Thomas, let's talk about travel restrictions. Are there any?
That's correct. That's an important element if you look at that first area of concern. So those holiday makers returning to their countries after spending some time abroad. The UK, for example, already announced quarantine requirements for people returning from places like France or the Netherlands. Germany, on the other hand, stated that it warned against non-essential travel to Spain. This is a very important issue here in this country and also in Spain, because there are many, many German tourists traveling every year to Spain, in particular to the Balearic Islands, and that's why this is seen as a very big decision in Germany, and also one that could have a very big impact economically in the tourism sector in Spain. Those are some of the key elements that have been decided, that every country or region on its high risk list, and that high risk list comprises about 130 countries and regions. When people return from one of those destinations, they must have a coronavirus test upon arrival, for example at an airport, and until they get a negative result, they must also remain in quarantine. This is to try and reduce the number of those infections that are brought by people who have traveled abroad and are now returning to the country. So as you can see, many different countries taking specific decisions on this particular case, because there is, and I can clearly sense that, a sense of concern about the increase in the number of cases of coronavirus, not only here in Germany, but in other parts of Europe as well.
Earlier, Thomas, there were demonstrations in part of Germany about the wearing of masks, for example. Tell us how citizens are reacting to the new restrictions.
There's also concern among citizens about this increase that I've been talking about. Authorities have been stressing on very also this week that it's very important for people to comply with the social distancing rules, to try and wear the mask when, for example, they're on public transport or when they go into shops. That's a requirement here, and authorities have warned that if people do not comply with those requirements, then they will have to pay fines. So there is a clear indication, and there's also some awareness that people have to play their part if those numbers are going to be reduced. Again, one of the concerns is not only people coming back from their holidays, but also what people are doing here in Germany, for example, celebrating, carrying out weddings or other parties, birthday parties. And this is seen as a particular risk when it comes to new infections and people having to go into quarantine. So that's why German authorities have been asking people to try and be as careful as possible, and many do seem to be taking that into consideration, although at the same time we also heard in recent weeks complaints by German officials that people were maybe becoming too complacent and that it was therefore of very of too much importance, of very, very significant that people complied with the rules and people remained careful when it came to those social distancing rules and wearing the masks.
Thank you, Thomas. Stay safe. That's Thomas Sparrow. He is with DW, our partners. He's been joining us live from Germany. We've been talking about coronavirus in Germany and the country's reaction to the coup in Mali.
For the Pulse today with me, Daniel Dazi. Many thanks for joining us. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com. Have a good day.